Ja, det var der i hvert fald lige før. Thank you. My name is Asbjørn. I'm a PhD student at the University of Copenhagen, and today I'm going to talk about COVID-19 and the possible digital future of work, more concretely in job placement. Just to give you a brief agenda, we kind of had this idea that COVID-19 could perhaps provide us with a glimpse into the future. I don't know if any of you had this discussion with your friends or your colleagues, like what can we learn from COVID-19, what are the changes we're going to see now, how are they going to affect our future, and that was kind of the motivation for the talk I'm giving today. I'm going to give a short introduction to a study I've conducted together with my supervisor, Naja Holten-Møller, in Danish job centers, and I'm going to give you a short experience following Peter, a fictive job consultant working in a Danish municipality, and then I'm going to come into the discussion of some challenges for the digital future of work. Yes, but we kind of had this assumption that we were perhaps looking into a COVID-19 crystal ball, and we saw three tendencies. Some have started before COVID-19 and some have started recently due to COVID-19. And first of all is rising unemployment. We see unemployment numbers skyrocketing all over the world. That includes Denmark. Because of these huge numbers of unemployed citizens, we also see an increased call for efficiency within job placement. Job centers needs to be more effective getting jobs for people. And following a longer trend, we see accelerating digitization. Working digital and remotely became the new normal during COVID-19 and is following a 20-year-long trend of digitization, especially in public administration. And we presume that this trend has only been strengthened due to COVID-19. So what we were looking at is how does the future of job centers or work in job centers and job placement look like? And that was what we investigated, and this is the story I'm going to talk with you about today. A very brief bio before going into academia. I used to work at a local government Denmark, KL, where I work with digitization. I have also been working at Mandag Morgen, a Danish think tank, and I'm also a former MP candidate for the party Alternative in Denmark. And today I'm a PhD fellow at the Department of Computer Science at KU. And investigating job centers or job placement and how the digital job center looks like was kind of interesting, because what my PhD is actually about is how the public administration implement algorithms and AI for decision support. And what I'm going to talk with you about today is not how new technologies emerge in this digital job center, but probably how older, more known technologies actually played a crucial role in work in the digital job center. Just briefly about the method and data collection. I conducted weekly interviews with 3 job consultants from 3 Danish municipalities. In total, I conducted more than 60 interviews, and the study was from the 20th of April until the 26th of June. And this is the study I will talk with you about today. The study continues, and I'm starting the interviews with the same job consultants again after the summer vacation to experience how is it going back from have been working remotely to again been working physically. So just to say that we have like a pretty dense and heavy qualitative data collection from how it is for job consultants or employment consultants to work in job centers or working from home during the Corona lockdown. And then I all want you to meet Peter. Peter is a fictive person. He is a job consultant working in a Danish job center, and I'm going to tell you his story today. Peter is of course not real. He is a mixture of the 6 job consultants I followed for 10 weeks, and the quotes and different points I'm going to bring forward today are from these different job consultants, all presented by Peter. usually Peter works in a physical job center. And that means that, yes, as you can see in the picture, he will meet his citizens physically, face-to-face, being co-located. His main tasks are to categorize citizens. Are they going to receive cash benefits, contingent, or are they receiving some other public support, for example, dagpenge, or are they entitled to maybe other public services than that? And usually he is physically located at the job center, and when he has a complex case, he will discuss the case with his colleagues, and he will use both official documentation, for example, a medical documentation, to assess the case of a citizen, and he will also use the human experience of meeting face-to-face with another person in assessing the case of a citizen. But Peter also told me that, well, something happens when the citizen steps through the door of the job center, which doesn't happen over the phone. And when you step through the doors of the job center, it becomes very clearly that you are an unemployed and perhaps vulnerable individual facing the public authority, which has power over you to decide your case and perhaps some pretty significant parts of your life. And this is what he says, well, this doesn't happen over the phone. But this is Peter working physically, placed at the job center. As you all know, Denmark was closed down due to Corona, and many of us working with knowledge work, that includes job consultants, are working from home. And when Peter was working from home and the other job consultants working from home, we saw this as the emergence of the digital job center. Well, you're all working from home, you're working from your computer and technologies. Well, that creates a digital job center. And simultaneously, the legislation on the area called aktiv beskæftigelsesindsats, meaning that unemployed individuals need to send out 2 applications each week, for example, or they need to be at specific points in time at the job center, or else they will be cut in public benefits, was suspended. And this created a significant change for Peter, because he says he still needed to call a lot of newly unemployed individuals to see what public benefits are they entitled to. But calling them during Corona, he said, well, the job seekers are happy that we call them. It's different than before when they had to come at the job center. They're happy that they're not forgotten, that someone cares about them. A week later, he said, well, we actually call it care interviews or service interviews, because the job seekers can just say no to talking with us. It's completely voluntarily, but of course they don't do that. The difference between the interviews is that at a regular, under normal circumstances, we would have to activate an offer, for example, an internship, that is obligations and rights, called in Danish retterpligt. These things were suspended. So before working at the physical job center, Peter had up to 3 months to categorize unemployed individual. For example, are you ready to take a job, or are you not ready to take a job? During Corona, instead of 3 months, he was making this categorization in 1 phone call. But what became more important for Peter was that they made this categorization in 1 phone call because they had a lot of newly unemployed people coming in when they needed to call. And also he felt the need to ensure that people got what they were eligible of. So instead of prolonging the process to say, okay, we need all these types of documentation to say that you're actually eligible for that type of public benefit and not this type, he made the categorization and decision in 1 phone call saying, well, people need to get what they are entitled of, and then we will afterwards reassure or see if this was the right decision. Do you have a question?
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
So, did we experience an increase in unemployment at the same time like the US, but less so, or did we not see that as a combined education of all of this?
In Denmark, yes, the unemployment also rose, not as drastically as in the US. From the 3 different municipalities I looked at, the unemployment rose between 30 and 200%. But there are huge local differences in the municipalities. The municipality which had a highest increase was a municipality who relied a lot on tourism, for example. So even in a small country as Denmark, Corona affected the different municipalities differently. I talked with another municipality who are about the same size, and they haven't had the same increase of unemployment numbers.
But the absolute unemployment is still low.
Yes, the absolute employment is still low, but it was still rising drastically. But compared to countries like the US, we're doing fairly good, I would say. Yes.
But did that cause stress to the job center? Besides having worked from home, they had like increased the experience.
Yeah, the question was if the job centers experienced increase in number of job seekers and if that stressed the job consultants. And in the beginning, it did, because they had a lot of phone calls they need to make. They need to get in contact with all these new unemployed individuals, and the unemployed individuals not necessarily registered unemployed correctly. For example, if you are receiving cash benefits, contingent, well then it's not enough just to say that you are unemployed on JobNet. But if you are receiving dagpenge, that will be sufficient. So people kind of registered wrong, and to ensure that you were receiving the cash benefits you were entitled to, the job consultants needed to get in contact with you to say, okay, well you're not ready to take a job right now. Okay, well then your public benefit will be higher than if you're ready to take a job now. So the Peter or the other job consultant I talked with had, for example, a list of 175 names who they just needed to call and figure out, you're newly unemployed, why are you unemployed, what are the reasons, do you have other obstacles than just being fired from Corona, what cash benefits can you receive. So they had a huge task, and I will get back to that also, but thanks for the question. But to put it quite bluntly, they were not caring more for citizens now when the legislation was suspended and they were working from home, but caring for the citizens just took up more of their time when they talked with the citizen. For example, they didn't have to talk about rights and obligations. They were more interested in, for example, identifying unemployed individuals who might have the risk of becoming lonely or suffer from depression due to COVID-19. So there were other measures that the job consultants focused on now than usually. And quite interesting, working digitally often meant by telephone. The main contact between the job center and the job consultant and the citizens was by telephone. So we were at least discussing, me and my supervisor, that perhaps the digital job center is not that digital. Maybe the digital job center is just using old technologies as a telephone, which is quite paradoxically for us, because I am investigating the use of intelligent technologies as AI and algorithms in job placement. But when we see during a crisis, well then it's the old technologies that will survive and make everything come together, and not these new technologies, which was quite interesting for us. But yeah, this more or increased focus on care changed during this period, because when we're in June, the legislation is back again, so people need to have the active employment effort are back, so people need to be available for the job center. And Peter said, well, now it's about rights and obligations that are picked. When it's about these things, it's about going through the rights and obligations, both to ensure their legal rights and also making it possible for us to sanction them. It's our only line of action. So yes, the interviews have changed. And this happened when the old legislation came forward, but the job consultants were still working from home. So now they face the challenge of saying some very sensitive things, for example, saying, well, you cannot receive your public benefits because you missed this and this and this meeting, but saying it over the phone. Perhaps actually saying, well, because you didn't pick up your phone on our scheduled meeting, we're gonna cut your benefits. That was how it was supposed to be, like following the law. In our experience, the job consultants were quite flexible about that because they say, well, it's a very, very special situation, so we're not going to sanction people for not picking up their phone as if they had missed the same meeting physically. And during the corona, the rules of unemployment changed quite drastically. In March, unemployment this employment effort was suspended, and then in May 15th, during the midst of our study, the employment was reactivated. So in this period, it was the period of care meetings with the citizens, and in the other period was when they had to tell unemployed individuals about their rights and obligations, which was a challenge for the unemployment consultants, and which I think will continue to be a challenge when you're dealing with sensitive topics as sanctioning people for doing it over the phone. And from June 15th, the first job consultant started to get back into the office, and my study continues, and right now all the job consultants are working back at their offices full time. And how that is going, I will get back to that. Peter is of course not alone when he meets the citizens. He has colleagues, and in the beginning, under the lockdown, he said, well, first of all, it's difficult to separate work time from play time. I came to think about how much I usually work around and go around and get things done over the table, chit-chatting over the coffee machine, or, oh, I have a complex case with this type of legislation, I'm just gonna walk down to the expert sitting at the other office to get help on my case. This was very difficult for them working at home, working remotely. In May, a month later, he says, well, I don't receive as many phone calls as I did in March or April. My time on the phone has decreased. People use email instead, or don't. We're more sure on what to do, and one trusts that the job you're carrying out, meaning you don't need to ping pong that much. So what they emphasized in the beginning, in April, was I really miss my colleagues. And they were trying all these new ways to experiment keeping online coffee meetings or online walk and talk to keep in social contact with each other, and they really missed this collegial contact. But in May, it kind of found another level, and they didn't emphasize the need to talk that much to their colleagues as they did in April. And when we're going to June, there, they said, well, I don't have that much contact to my colleagues now. Maybe we call each other a little more, but the need for talking with them has decreased. It's actually going just fine without all that contact. It's actually thought-provoking that you don't miss your colleagues that much. People are better off with the situation now, and everybody is actually okay working from home. Maybe we are good at adapting. And this was quite striking for me because I have these weekly interviews with the job consultants, and in June it occurred to me that they entirely stopped talking about their colleagues. And they just said, like, what's going on, how is your contact with your colleagues? And then they said this, we don't actually need each other that much anymore. We kind of have found a new way to work, probably also because they have had more experience to work from home, and they have experienced the benefits of working from home. For example, the ability to decide when they will call citizens, or the silence in working in your own house and not in an open office as many of them do. And then there is the paradox of the digital meeting, and I think that this point is especially important not only for job placement, but for the entire field of public services, where you have public officials meeting with citizens. So not only job placement, but it can also be social services, for example. And the paradox is that the digital job center is at the same time more intrusive and less intrusive for both parts. Let's start with the less intrusive. When you, as I said in the beginning, Peter said, well, when you walk through the door as an unemployed individual, it's pretty clear that you're facing an authority. This doesn't happen over the phone. You are more on an equal level. Also because you're probably both calling from home, you are in safe surroundings, it's comfortable, and as I said in the beginning, when a job consultant assesses the case of the citizen trying to figure out what is the best way for them, he not only uses all the documents he can assess, but also the feeling, the contact, the emotional contact he gets from the other person. And this is decreased over the telephone. So it is, but this is the decrease, but kind of increases the autonomy of the citizen. It is easier as a citizen, when you only talk with the job consultant over the phone, to disguise if you, for example, have been drinking a lot of alcohol or haven't gotten a lot of sleep. So in this way, the digital meeting is less intrusive. It is more private for the citizen to meeting the job center online. You don't have to walk through the doors. But when the job center can call you, they can reach you anywhere. They can reach you in the supermarket, they can reach you when you're picking up your kids, they can even reach you at home. So you can't even limit the meeting with the job center to actually going to not neutral ground, but the ground of the job center. Now the job center can put its hand into your home and reach you there. And the same goes for the job consultant. I talked with a job consultant about this yesterday and told her this paradox, and he said, well, yes, it goes the other way around, because it's not all who want to show their living room, for example, as an unemployed individual to a job consultant. And it's not all job consultants who want to show the living room to an unemployed individual. There's this mixture of private and professional space that is kind of getting mixed up in this. So my point is that the digital job center is more and less intrusive at the same time. And another challenge for this is, which is also a surprise for me, but not for the job consultants, was that there are still persons, unemployed people with who don't have a phone, or who don't have a computer, or who believe that if they open up a computer with a webcam on, well, then everybody can spy on them. And these are legit concerns and legit and real challenges that we need to take into consideration when we discuss how are we gonna, how is the future for digital or work placement, how is it gonna look like? How will we continue to meet our citizens? And that brings me to the next slide, some important challenges and decisions for future of work. And as a job consultant said in June, well, there are a lot of meetings right now, and both numbers and contents needs to be the same. That is the legal content, rights and obligations. But we have to do it on the phone. And in the beginning, we tried to allocate 20 minutes per meeting, but after one day, we need to change it back. We change it back to 30 minutes. So right now, or at least before the summer vacation, job consultants face a huge challenge of talking with all the unemployed individuals and having the meetings as if it was a physical meeting with rights, obligations, saying if you don't meet up, you will be sanctioned, this is your right to complain, all that stuff, but now they just have to do it over the phone. And as the job consultant stressed to me, it is, and you probably also know it if you have discussed a delicate matter with one of your friends or your colleagues, it can be nice to sit in front of one another when you're talking about sensitive topics. And that is a challenge for job consultants, talking about sensitive topics as sanctioning a citizen, but not able to see the person you're actually talking with, but only over the phone. Another concern, and that is especially challenging from a policy perspective, is, as Peter said, well, I'm primarily working with people on unemployment benefits, that means dagpenge, or people receiving cash assistance, contingent. From above, one would say that everybody needs to be digital. But when you look closely, there will be nuances. Some groups of people receiving unemployment benefits will be challenged, and some groups receiving cash benefits will be able to do it. So it's quite, my point is that it's quite easy to say, well, okay, people on dagpenge, they are probably more digital ready than people on contingent. Let's make the people on dagpenge have digital meetings and the people on contingent have physical meetings. But the point from Peter and the job consultants is, well, there are differences and nuances across these groups. You can be on contingent, but be right out of high school and be quite digital, and you could have been on dagpenge and be 65 and not be that digital. to put it very stereotypically. But these are some of the nuances that the job consultant fear will not be taken into consideration when the future is laid down by policy. And before this talk, I kind of Googled the future of work, and when you look at the future of work, it seems rather digital. It seems it's digital, it's automation, it's artificial intelligence, and this is quite interesting. As I said, well, the main digital technology the job consultants used was, of course, email, but it was their phone. And it is especially interesting when we need to discuss what is being lost in the digital meeting, which you can have in the physical meeting. For example, sensing the person right in front of you, what is actually going on with them, which is much, at least the consultants tell me, is much harder doing over the phone or via Skype or whatever. So, we kind of discussed, well, is the future of job placement digital? And from what I can see from central organizations, public organizations, is that, as I said in the beginning, because of Corona, there is a push for more digitization. For example, I figured out that I'm working as a researcher at KU, and I can do a lot of my science, a lot of my work, I can do it from home. Reading, writing articles, I can talk on the phone with my supervisor. It works fine. But I'm not having in the same way to deal with serving people as, for example, people in school teachers or people in job placement who needs to be in physical contact with citizens. So I think that a challenge for the future of job placement will be, how do we decide whom will we meet physically and whom will we meet digitally? And what will the consequences of these two meetings will be, and about what topics can we meet people? And this kind of leads me to my last question to you, and then I'll be done, is the future of welfare digital? Because I don't know about you, but I see that digitization is a mega trend, and it will continue, and it in many areas will also affect welfare. We will have online meetings with our doctor, and that could be fine. We can 3D print stuff. We can do a lot of online tests and a lot of online surveys instead of meeting people physically. But how the future of digital welfare is going to look like is going to be a huge topic in the future, and I think it's going to be very important that we, as the job consultant says, don't just think that we can categorize people from our usual categories of people on dowping, they could be digital, and people on contingent, they can't be digital or will not benefit from digital meeting, and will make mistakes and miss all the different nuances within this gray, complex area. If you have any questions now or afterwards, you can reach out to me at my email, or you can follow the work of me and my colleagues at the KU at the Confronting Data Colab, where we investigate complex topics as AI in public administration, tech in society, or the future of work. Thank you.
Any questions? Oh. Thank you very much. That was super interesting.
You're welcome. Thank you.